We'll be making our database using Microsoft Access. So if you're a C2K user doing the Digital Technologies GCSE that this series is designed for, then you can download 5 copies of Office for free. Ask your teacher in school about that. So let's begin by going to our Start menu and opening Access. So this is our home screen for Access. Access and databases in general are different from most other applications. In Word, for example, you could type up a whole novel before ever pressing the Save button, which would be a pretty stupid thing to do, but you could do it if you wanted. Databases, on the other hand, will normally save all of the user's actions or inputs as they happen. So if you're entering a new product into your database and the power goes out, when you come back to the database, it would probably still have half of that product detail still there waiting for you to finish. In order to do this, the database needs to have a place on the hard drive to save to. The only way to do that is to have a file with a file name on the hard drive that can be added to. So the first thing we must always do when creating a database is to create the database file. We cannot do anything else inside our database until the file exists. So let's do that now. So we click the blank database option. We can then use the browse folder to decide where we want to save our work. Give the file a name. I'm going to call mine Ski School. We then click OK and finally click Create. When a new database first opens in Access, you see a table called Table 1, and it is a datasheet view. We'll look at views in a moment. As we've seen in the previous video, relational databases are all about how we arrange or structure our data. Data is stored inside tables, and those tables are linked together through relationships. Each table holds a specific set or type of data. For example, a customer table holds things like customers' names, addresses, and so on. Tables are the foundation of any database, as this is where our all-important data is actually stored. All the other things we do, such as searching for the most popular product or printing monthly sales reports, all pull data from these tables in order to produce that information. So we start a database by creating our tables and their relationships to each other. There are a few different ways to create a table. Some people find it easiest to type in a sample set of data, such as all the bits of data we want to store about something. This then becomes the basis on which they create the table. Other people prefer to go straight into Design View and describe all the bits of data they want to store in there. Either way, you will end up in Design View at some point. Let's start by entering some data first. We can see here that the table has already inserted a primary key for us, the ID. So let's type in some sample customer data and then move into Design View. I have added our old friend John Smith into Table 1. You may have noticed that I have split the data up a lot. In a database, all data fields should be atomic. That means only storing one single piece of data in each field or column. So your name should be split into the separate parts like title, first name, surname, and so on. You may also have noticed that the names of each column or field is not very meaningful. Field 1, Field 2, and so on. And another problem we have is that the phone number won't allow me to enter the 0 at the beginning. That is because Access has assumed that this is an actual number value, and so you wouldn't write the number 10 as 010, you would drop the first 0 and just write 10. All of these issues will be fixed in Design View, where we're going now. As I said, this method is just a starting point for some people. In the bottom right corner of our screen you'll see two buttons. The first one is for Datasheet View, where we are now, and the second is for Design View. We will go there now. We must give a table a meaningful name before we can enter Design View. I like to start my tables with TBL_, and then I give the table name. So this is the customer table. This is so when we get to the more complex stuff at A level, I would easily know if I'm referring to a table or a form and so on. Before we get to grips with Design View, I'm going to jump back into Datasheet View. As you can see, the data we entered is still there. As I said before, a database will usually save users' input as they go along. But when we go back to Design View, here you are no longer a user. Here you are a developer. And the changes that you make here are not saved as you go along. So if you make changes in the database design, then you have to go up and use the Save button to save those changes. Access will usually prompt you to do this if you forget to save something and try and close it. So the first things we should do when designing a new database table are decide what our field names are and our data types. I'm going to call this customer underscore ID, and I'm going to highlight that and copy it and use the same name the whole way along. This means that I will know that all of these fields come from my customer table. So now I have renamed all my fields so that they're a bit more meaningful. Oh, like I said, you have to save if you forget. So they're a bit more meaningful for the data that's actually inside of them. Next, I'll have to decide on my data types. The auto number data type simply means that Access itself will deal with giving a unique number or unique ID for our primary keys. So it's probably best to leave this as an auto number until you know better what you're doing. Our title, forename, surname, address, town and postcode are all text. Our phone number, as we've seen before, is in fact not a number. It should also be a short text type. Because it's text, that means we can now add a leading zero. Numbers should only be used for things that are actually of value, such as how many items you have in stock. If it's a code, you should always use the short text data type. So if I now go back into Datasheet view, I should be able to add my leading zero to my phone number, and that's no longer a problem. There are a number of different data types within a database, such as different types of numbers, long numbers, dates and times, currency, Boolean values, and so on. We'll find out a lot more about data types in the next video. Before I leave this video, the only one thing I want to check is that in this area over here, you can see all of the different objects that we build in our database, such as queries and forms and reports. In order to make sure we can see those, we use this little drop down and make sure that this little box is ticked, all access objects. We'll find out more about making tables, relationships and data types in our next video. See you there.